Does life actually get better? How do you come back get better from being lonely and extremely depressed? How do you create meaningful relationships when you are so screwed up? I don't know if life gets better or you get better. I've struggled with depression for most of my life. The thing is that my mental toils grow stronger with every other struggle I have to deal with. Summers used to make me extremely happy. Well, content is maybe a better word, because I could only be focused on work and making money. College was horrible because it took almost 6 years and the only thing I envisioned my diploma to be was a giant question mark instead of a marker of success. I was tired, angry and overwhelmed for those 6 years. I thought about killing myself a couple times because of all the strain. But I thought that if I killed myself, I wouldn't have known if I'd have finished school. But school was so difficult to complete. Your whole life you hear that a degree brings happiness and success. It doesn't. But school is done with. Do I have a career to show for it? A nice new car and a house? Number. I have debt but at the same time I'm carefree. So to answer your question, depression might not go away but you will mature and things will get easier. But it's never truly gone. You can't live a meaningful life in a day but you can have a slightly better day at a time. Strive towards having a better day first. Start with one conversation, one relationship at a time, and give yourself time to grow and get results. Consistent effort is what it takes to be better. All true. And to add to that, the most important person to cultivate a respectful and meaningful relationship with is yourself. Recognize your mistakes but don't dwell on them. Be kind to yourself and treat yourself with the kindness that you want to treat others with. Only by practicing to be kind to yourself can you learn to be kind to others. In 2008 I lost my job. All I could get right away was McDonald's so I took it, but it wasn't enough to pay all my bills. My car was repossessed. I got kicked out of my apartment. And I found out my girlfriend was cheating on me all within the space of a month or so. It was the lowest period of my life. I struggled with depression. Considered suicide. It just wasn't a good time. I was homeless. But I had good friends who gave me a place to stay so I was never actually on the streets. It took a while, but today I have a good job. I apprenticed in the tool and die trade and I make good money for a guy who barely graduated high school and never went to college. I'm married, and my home life is stable. It's not perfect. Life never is, but I'm far better than I was. I hope everyone in this thread who is struggling is able to find a way to better days as well. Everything in life is temporary. Good times, bad times, all temporary. But if you were happy you would never think to yourself, wow, this happiness is gonna last forever and will never change. When depressed we have a tendency to think nothing will ever change. But this is the source of the depression. You need to abandon the narratives you've created for yourself. You aren't some weirdo who is screwed up. Most people in your situation would likely become depressed. Hence why it's endemic and suicide is the biggest killer of young men. You are just a normal person. You're not the problem. It's our sick, crappy world. You're just reacting appropriately to it. It will change for me when I started to view my depression and anxiety as non-narratively. They weren't a sign of weakness or failure. It was an underlying functional problem with my biology and thinking. It wasn't anything to be ashamed about. Indeed, it's not an emotion-inducing event. Depression, like all disease, is morally neutral. Risk factors of depression aren't things like bad personality or boring or dumb. Risk factors for depression are things like lack of physical activity, poor diet, genetics. None are statements about you as a person. It took years, but slowly I changed how I thought. I did some great cognitive behavioral therapy. I started to become aware of the thoughts that went through my head, and aware of how those thoughts would trigger negative emotion. By simply observing and discarding those thoughts I can stop tormenting myself. The biggest thing you can do is be kind to yourself. Give yourself a break. You're going through a really tough time. My rule when self-talking is never say anything to myself I wouldn't say to a friend. I am a friend to myself. I take care of myself. I don't tell myself I am pathetic for this or that anymore. Another thing I really remember my therapist saying, act, don't feel. If you wait until you feel like going out to a coffee shop, you will never go. The act of going is what will make you feel better. Lack of activity is strongly linked to depression. It's why anxiety often leads to depression. Your brain wants to act, but you are too afraid, so you do nothing. And that act of thinking about doing something and then not doing it sends bad signals. Humans want to be free and have agency. It's a long road, but you need to learn to love yourself. You're worth it. We all are. We're not weak because of this crap. And one day this rough patch in life will become your armor. Every time life gets rough, I remind myself it's a cakewalk compared to the crap I've been through. Literally nothing can hurt me anymore, really. Go to therapy counseling. The other suggestions are great, but I don't think these people understand what it's like to go through depression. You don't merely snap out of it by doing the things they suggested. Find a good therapist, and if you cannot afford one, look for support groups of others who are also experiencing depression and talk about your struggles with them. Mental health counseling, along with the things the others have mentioned, will go a long way. Relationships happen because you have a life to share, so don't go looking for it. Build a life for yourself first. Self-improvement, exercise, nutrition. Get a plant or pet and bond with it so you have some form of responsibility and a reason to become more disciplined. Once you've sorted out the basics, find what would make you happy or proud of yourself and actively chase down that dream. Sometimes it helps to remember that you could put yourself in an absolute heck if you left things deteriorate. So spend a bit of time contemplating how easily things could get way worse if you did nothing. Just don't ever forget, you have something to contribute to life, even if others cannot or do not appreciate what you are doing. Every small step helps. Give it time. As a last piece of advice, do a year of yes. If someone asks you to do something and you cannot immediately think of a proper argument to say no, say yes and go do it. I really appreciate your comment, but I'm already too far deep in heck. I don't do anything. I wish I could go back to the stage when I had the choice to prevent my life from going to crap. I'll try to do the year of yes, but I don't have anyone to ask me anything. I apologize for the depressing response, and I hope you are doing much better than I am. I just want to say this. Thank you everyone for your support and helpful responses. It opened my eyes to see real proof that I am not alone. Yeah, everyone always tells you that you are not alone. But seeing is believing, and now I truly believe I'm not alone and that there are people out there that I would want to connect with. I want you to all know that I will definitely read absolutely every single response. It may take a while, and I apologize if I'm not able to respond to every one of you, because some of you really put your story out there and it means so much to me, and I'm sure it means a ton to a lot of other people who are struggling with this to hear your story and experiences and to be able to get real advice on how to start getting better. I wish you all the best, and I am so grateful for all of your responses and kindness through this dark time. It's always worth finding someone awesome in your life and sticking with them. Doesn't have to be a partner or family member. It can be a dog or a Twitch chat community. Find somewhere you belong and fit in, whether it's with one person or many. I've been living with severe clinical depression. I could claim disability if I needed to for almost 30 years now. 2 more and I can celebrate my first clinical diagnosis. Therapy and medication. Sure, exercise and eating healthy help, but they don't help like people who were once sad and then went outside think they do. They can take you from a 2 to 2.5. They can't heal you. Therapy and medication is where you'll get your help. You need to learn how to think and also get the right meds to fix your brain chemistry. Medications are also not an exact science. Some may work in the short term, others may not seem to help at all until one day they do. Keep an open line of communication with your mental health provider, as they may need to adjust dosage. Some days are better than others. I have good days and bad days and a lot of mixed day. It's a struggle, but like riding a bike, it takes time and you fall down. Finding friends in today's society can be really hard. That said, start in places where talking with others is encouraged. Creating meaningful relationships is a two-way street, but in general it's a lot of stumbling around getting to know each other and find your comfort zone. This is a bit of a question to answer, and I really wish there was a simple solution, but the reality is that everyone's mental issues are subtly different. Mental illness don't group as nicely as physical illness. My wife and her sister both suffer from generalized anxiety disorder, but one has a bit more OCD rolled in and the other has a bit more depression. What works for one person's depression might not work for you depression. Main things you need to know and keep telling yourself. It is not your fault. It is not a weakness in your personality. You are not screwed up. You have a medical condition that negatively affects your brain. It is simply that we do not understand enough about how the brain works to be able to say exactly what is wrong. It will go and it will come back, but you can change this pattern. You can make improvements. I'll tell you about myself and you are free to draw your conclusions. I have major childhood trauma, verbal and emotionally abusive parents, mainly father. Things went south even before I was born. Mum had anxiety when she was pregnant with me. Parents got divorced. Money was sparse. Health got crap. Got depressed. Very anxious. And struggled like a pig. Then I started working. I saved money. And here's the most important thing you need to do. I got a good therapist and worked on myself like crazy. It was exhausting and overwhelming. I worked on myself, my relationships, my habits, my very personality. It is so important to get a good therapist. They may be expensive. This one was, but she was the best thing I've done for myself. And since then, the anxiety is down. My relationships are so much better. But all the trauma and shit show of 25 years doesn't go away in 15 therapy sessions. But I'm much better equipped to deal with things now. We are still not rich, we still struggle. But we have finally arrested the decline. You'll too. Feel free to DM me if you need anything. To quote a great fictional man, sometimes life is like this tunnel. You can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel, but if you keep moving, you will come to a better place. A month ago I didn't think anything was worth it anymore. I remembered this quote and kept moving forward. It took time, a long time, but I'm finally leaving the job I hate for a job that I'm actually excited about. Change won't happen overnight, but you have to keep showing up the next day to make progress. Don't be afraid of change and you'll be fine. You find yourself someone or something that makes you happy. I can be a partner or a simple pet. Maybe a leopard gecko or a cat. Everything that lives longer than 10 years might not be that bad. Find someone to talk to or hang out. He/she doesn't need to be a relationship. Just someone who is open and can listen to you and that you trust. For me that would be my gaming buddies I met while playing D. But if you are alone and very shy, I recommend maybe a pet. Leopard geckos are cheap and low maintenance. Of course there are a lot others, but a pet that you can take in your hand, pet and talk to works wonders and will build confidence. Important is that you aren't alone. For me at least. Loneliness is the worst thing because my depression starts really kicking through then. Maybe this helped, maybe not. It's just what I did and it helps a lot. D. Leopard gecko is a very specific pitch. That said I had one as a kid and they're cool. As someone who has been suffering with depression for 8 years now, no it doesn't. You just have to come to terms with that. You'll have lows and highs, but if you are genuinely chronically depressed, your only choice is living life as a zombie on medication or dealing with it. This doesn't apply to everyone though, so hopefully your case is different. I would definitely recommend taking daily vitamin D and iron as this can help combat feeling tired all the time, and getting in the gym a couple times a week can also distract you from feeling like crap. Also try not to push away the people that care about you when you're depressed, because after a while they'll stop caring and you'll be on your own permanently. If you're feeling lonely, try reaching out to a friend or a colleague and just being straight with them. I'm really suffering over here and I could do with a friend. Results may vary. Good luck. For some individuals, it doesn't always help to go to therapy. In fact, it can add to the frustration, feeling more like an exercise in futility. You trust in yourself and trust in others. People understand, or try to understand, the struggle you face every day and stand ready to be kind and helpful. Time and patience, coupled to making minor degrees of progress, are key to working through what you face on a daily basis. If therapy doesn't work, a positive attitude and determination to change things for the better may prove reliable allies over time. Honestly, everyone is going to make the politically correct answer that if you try, believe, hope, blah blah blah, it will get better. Don't ever forget that sometimes even for really good people it just doesn't. Life sometimes just continuously gets worse and more meaningless and ends up in absolutely nothing productive. Sometimes you just consume an insane amount of resources from the world and never produce anything good, and you actually harm the entire world with your existence, and its only cause other people would be sad that you are gone, that you continue on. Yes people, this is the reality whether you like it or not. I'd say find a hobby. The most depressing times in my life were when all I did was go to school, work and watch TV until I went to bed to wake up to go to school, work. I'm not saying TV isn't a hobby, but it wasn't mine. I started playing a phone game that hooked me in and took up cross-stitching. It gave me something to look forward to after the monotonous day-to-day life. I also looked into social groups, like books clubs or sewing circles. Wow, I sound like a grandma. Running club. Didn't last long. Happy hour with co-workers. I honestly dreaded every time I would have to go because I wanted to slip back into depression sitting at home watching trash TV. But every time I went I had an amazing time just doing something different. The hobbies I stuck with were sort of mind-numbing and let my brain defrag. It was honestly how I fell in love with myself and my alone time that fully pulled me out of the funk. Not always. In my 40+ years experience it just gets steadily worse. I've spent most of my life completely friendless. You always hear people say to go to places where you'll meet like-minded people, but that assumes these places exist, which they don't for me where I am. And my social anxiety makes it a non-starter anyway. I've been through a number of psychologists over the last couple of decades that have all given up on me and been on a variety of antidepressants, none of which helped. Now I just exist day to day, week to week, wondering how much longer I can keep going. Not looking great for me at 20 with no friends and completely debilitating social anxiety. Life doesn't get better. The only thing that you can get better is yourself. By working with a therapist and focusing on personal growth, your goal is to be strong and resilient to deal with life and develop a healthy way to cope. Because life won't change, but you can change and grow. In my experience, yes and no. I went really downhill after a bad breakup around 4 years ago. I was in a mental space where I hated my job, hated my living situation, and hated my loneliness. I believed my ex was the rare source of happiness in my life, and in my mind it was her fault I was feeling what I was. I drank a lot, begged her to take me back, drank more and more. Ultimately I made peace with most of those demons, but kept drinking. Ultimately my drinking contributed to me losing my job. I did get better, but I'm nowhere near as optimistic as I used to be. I'm drinking less. I play in 2 bands and DJ often. Channeling my emotions into music has been a healthy and rewarding outlet. I have a new job where I feel valued. I have a new relationship, 2 years now, with a great and supportive woman, but I still struggle with trust issues. I feel emotionally disconnected. I show up for my friends, family and partner, but I do so because I feel like it's what I'm supposed to do, not because I actually want to. I used to be warm. It's like a switch turned off and never got turned back on. So I'm better, but I don't think I'll ever be the funny, warm and welcoming guy I used to be. I appear to be, but it's mostly a facade. If you are extremely depressed, then, despite what other Redditors wrote, I don't think exercise, proper diet and stop thinking negatively is going to help you very much, even though exercise, diet and thinking patterns are proven to impact our mood. I would assume it might be frustrating listening to such superficial advices. If you're seriously depressed, proper medication and therapy is what you need. Chances are it will get better, but it's not going to happen overnight. Also, being depressed doesn't mean you're incapable of being in a relationship. Being depressed doesn't make you incapable of being in a relationship. However, going into one knowing that you are depressed may cause a lot of problems for your partner through stress, etc. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.